Hey, this is Anney.
And Samantha.
And welcome to Stuff I Never Told You, a production of iHeartRadio.
And welcome. And y'all, it's been a long road for me specifically during this pandemic. And one of the things that we've been doing, and I say we collectively because I feel like most of you have been on a journey with me in trying to find interesting hobbies for Samantha. I will say I have failed in several things, including tarot cards and knitting, which I have been able to knit a square, small square.
That's still something. I wouldn't say you failed. I would say they just didn't take. Maybe they weren't for you.
I do like it. I want to pick it back up, but I just got very distracted. And I'm like, okay, next. There's some this is where I might have some neurodivergent tendencies that it's just a little different. This is one of those moments. But on this road, I'm still continuing with the help find Samantha some new hobbies track, I guess we can say. Because I've got questions. I've got lots of questions. And it's led me to this Monday Mini, in which we are going to explore, you and I, Anney. But before we start, I need to ask, because we are going to talk about the world of phone games, which I've figured out, and I think you've talked about many a times, and I've learned as of now, like it's one of the largest portion of gaming is through the phone. They're a $1 billion industry. We need to figure out a good game. Someone help us develop a SMNTY game. We need to do this.
We already have a choose your own adventure idea where you are a feminist and you just get screwed over again.
Completely. Because it's 2022.
That's too sad. We need to come up with a better one.
That's how that goes. But so learning that this has become a huge industry, for me, that makes me feel a little validated and knowing that I'm not the only one obsessed with playing phone games. However, Anney, before we go into there, what's happening in your gaming world?
Oh my. Well, as you know, I recently beat The Last of Us 2 again. I think this is the 10th time. So I should get something.
Yeah, we should get you a badge.
Please get me a badge. That would be fantastic.
Okay.
I love, because I'm already picturing the ridiculous thing you're going to design, and I love it.
Don't worry about it. I got this.
Oh, okay. I was playing with my little brother, who had never played it before, and I feel like I could really make a career on The Last of Us 2 playthroughs. 1 some, but 2 definitely. So I beat that. More tears were had. Now I'm in, because I was hesitant to start a new game while I was in this playthrough with my little brother, because I didn't want my control brain to get mixed up by playing another game, and I'm pretty good at The Last of Us 2, and I didn't want to lose that reputation. So now I'm in a process of letting go. Am I going to let go and play a different game? Because I have a lot of buildup. I want to play. There's a bunch of Star Wars games I've never played that I have. There's a Resident Evil game I've been trying to play for a long time. So I think I'm on a precipice. Who knows what I'll do.
Okay.
Me and my little brother are going to start. He hadn't played the first one, so we're going to go back and play the first one. So that will be interesting, because the controls are just slightly different. And I don't know if you saw, but there's a lot of news and argument happening about The Last of Us. The first one is releasing a remastered version. So I'm hoping, I don't think it comes out soon, but if it did, that'd be good timing, because then I have a reason to play it again with my little brother.
Perfect timing.
Perfect timing. Lots of Mario Party has been had, as you know.
As do.
Yes, and lots of D&D, Dungeons and Dragons. We're kind of taking a quick hiatus, but a lot of, things have gone down in our campaign, I'll say. Character development. There were puppets, and they apparently needed to express themselves through those puppets. A lot of deep moments happened with the puppets.
Well, they are very handy for therapy for children, so maybe a whole different level. You've just made your D&D into a therapy session. Congratulations.
It did kind of feel like that, actually. But it was good in the best way.
I love it. I still want to come around so I can do a whole commentating, sports narrating for you guys.
Oh, I think it'd be great. I think it would be fantastic.
I'm ready. I'm ready. Let's bring me in, coach. Bring me in, as we say.
Got it.
Maybe my other hobby. Let's try that as a hobby.
Ooh,
but
just narrating our D&D
just the entire time. That's my thing. That sounds about right. That sounds about that would be right up my alley, to be honest.
It does.
Yeah, but yeah. So you and I have been talking about a lot of gaming stuff because I am a part of the Mario Party world, and we have discovered I am really bad at control games and races. I'm bad. Like, there's no denying it. I'm the one that constantly falls off of things and takes me forever. The, like, silly things, kind of like puzzle-ish, I'm a little better at, but I would not say I thrive. Like, there's a game in the Mario Party where you're jumping on leaves to go up.
Yeah.
Never won that. Always last place. The little... where you go to the target to go through all the bananas to get to the one center, never made first place in that.
Oh, yeah, that one's amazing.
I can't stand those. The ones where you're like on a small path or you fall off into the water, never, ever have I made it.
Well, you're better at me than that flipping steak one.
The flipping steak one, I'm okay, but you've beaten me. I felt very upset about that. The getting the candy out of the jar, I was okay. Yes. Then you were better at me at that. And I was like, okay, I'm upset about this as well. I have kicked y'all's ass on the little tricycle race.
That is true.
Just, like, I've won every time on that. I will say that. I don't know if it's a small motions.
It is.
I think I'm good with that.
I love for anyone who's never played Mario Party or is like very casual player and you're like, what are we talking about?
There's so many mini games in this thing. But anyway, we have discovered I'm not great. Like, I really wish it was just a thing that I'm like, I don't like it. No, I'm just not good at it, so I don't like it because of that. But I still participate.
Yes,
I still participate. Do I like to yell at people? Yes. Does it make me angry that I'll lose all the time? Also, yes. But that's okay. That's okay, because I have found my love for the phone games, which, you know, we've talked about. I am a gamer by playing through these phone games, which is now one of the biggest forms of gaming that has outstripped many other types, as well as the fact that, yes, it's a multi-billion-dollar process. It has grown leaps and bounds. There are thousands and thousands of games out there that you can choose from, and some of them are problematic, as we've also discovered. But before we get into all of those issues, confession time, got sucked into a world of just choose your own adventure story phone games or narrative games, narrative mobile games, which I've just, again, really kind of gotten into in the last week because I was like, what is this? There is a variety of stories. And yes, I actually ventured toward the spicy content, ruh-roh. But there is like, there are stories on romance, adventure, so many other things that I'm like, okay, cool. And of course, as a person who now looks at everything with a bit of a feminist lens, thank you to our jobs, I noticed the language and the characters of the game seem to be more from a feminist lens or female gaze in a lot of this conversation. But I want to add a caveat to this. It has problems. Like everything else, slowly changing. Society is changing. The conversations are constantly changing or reverting. You never know. The demands and inclusivity is still trailing behind with some of these games, with what many players have asked for. But there are games like Choices. This is the name of the game. Choices, Stories You Play, which was launched in 2016. Seems like they may be trying. And I'm going to put that again with a caveat of like, I'm just now researching this. And whoa. There's a fandom, Anney. There is a fandom that I did not understand. I also want to let y'all know, yes, I was playing another game that you have to watch ads in order to get more lives or points or whatever advantage. And it was through this that I repeatedly saw this ad. And I was like, what is this? Okay, that's it. Let me download and just for 3 minutes, check out what is happening. They got me, Anney.
They got you. I feel like this is how you got on the last phone game.
It's true. These ads. Some of them are too good.
Thank you, sponsors.
I don't have any. The one that I went into was Choices, again, stories you play. And it is by the team Pixelberry, who apparently have been around for a decade. They've been doing story-ish type of things. I think they first had episodic games called Surviving High School and Cause of Death, and then they kind of expanded into this, which has games like High School Story, Hollywood U, all these additional stories in here. And their mission, because I needed to go to their site to see what this was about, is bringing meaningful and positive game experiences to our millions of players around the world. And they do. They have tons of players. To the fact they have Reddit boards dedicated to these characters and to these stories. And I was like, what? There even was an article in Vice in which when the author talks about how they had gone through a pretty serious medical condition, and while going through it, they were already playing, I believe, but they played even more so on this specific app, trying to be anything but what they were going through. So literally they were talking about how they used this as an escape during this time, and also trying to having this identity crisis of using those characters as a way to reflect on themselves, which is a question because you haven't done it yet, correct?
I have not, but when you were telling me about it, I was very interested.
So we're going to talk about that. But you can name them after yourself. You can name who they are, and you can have this character, MCs, or the main characters, but they shortened it to MCs to reflect them so that they could do this adventure as if it's them. And it is. The way they write it is you are doing this and you are doing this, but you're not really cognizant that it's saying it that way. You just picture it as, yes, I am doing this. You are correct. And so I was very interested. I'm like, okay, it has a fandom, and it is grown. And well, I will say also about the ads, of course, they were different than what I expected or what seemed to be advertising to me. But again, still, it hooked me. It got me. You got me, Pixelberry. You got me, okay? And again, like I said, there was a pretty big following. But with this original content, there was a lot of issues that people were complaining about, and rightly so. So one of the things that I discovered when I was specifically reading about this one app, because there's so many others. There's so many, I think, Chapters is one of them. There's a thing where it's I've not played these. These are just the ads I've seen since then. It's like Me Chat. And apparently you're supposed to be chatting as if I don't know. I think it's supposed to mimic as if you're actually chatting with a person from a website. Okay. I know. That's what it shows. Again, the ads are always misleading to me. They always lie a little bit, it seems. Whatever. But one of the things that I found specifically with this gaming app is that there is a petition that happened in 2018, 2019, I think, that call out for, quote, radical change because there are so many problems within the app. And so I'm going to read just a little bit of it. So again, some of these things that I'm mentioning are the books or the stories in there, or that used to be there. You canceled Across the World. What could have been a series became a royal screw-up. You also canceled The Heist, Monaco, whose name clearly indicated plans for more books if it was successful, even though it was well-received. You even screwed up The Elementalist by turning an adventure-focused series into a Beckett romance book for one single interest, money. And now you canceled Nightbound after making its cover romance nonsense, once again showing pure devotion to what seems to be your new statement, destroying yourselves. What about, and they talked about all these other books, and they go on again, he says, which funnily enough are all gender-locked books. So when they're talking about gender-locked, it means that you can only play one specific gender. So if it's intended for a woman, you can only play a woman. You couldn't choose at that point in time. That they go on, once again, renouncing on your diversity, which is something that they play into. So the petition people, the people who have created this petition were absolutely correct. This is something they seem to say they want to do. It seemed that in 2018, 2019, it wasn't happening. And that's what you reduce yourselves to, saying that they are no longer about diversity. So they were asking, please change this, please make it better. So I thought that was really interesting because I was like, well, they are serious. And as I was reading some of the Reddit clips, they were talking about the following problems, including that it was gender locked, that you had no choice of what gender you could play, that the love interests or the LIs were also gender locked, and therefore you had no choice if you were in the LGBTQ community that you couldn't do it, that there was only 3 races or ethnicities that were being allowed, and that was Hispanic, Black, and Caucasian in the story. And then also another big thing, and I haven't seen a change to it, is that all based in the US, and it's an international app. So several of these things were big conversations, like why do you have to have it this way? And another big conversation, again, as we talked about, was sexuality or sexual preference. And I think they did have some options of being gay or lesbian, but that was it. It was very still like this and not that. And so it was very interesting to me to see this conversation. So I had to venture out. I went from one of my content to 3 others to try to see how big of a change or difference, or had they changed that since that petition, which, by the way, they had 250 people sign. So that's not a huge number, but for an mobile app game, for even to have a petition as well as to have people sign, seems pretty significant to me. I don't know. Just saying. So some of the things that I was going through with this is like, has it changed? Has Pixelberry been listening to their people? And I'm picking on Pixelberry. I'm so sorry. If you're a listener and you know Pixelberry, or you work for Pixelberry or have a connection to Pixelberry, it's mainly because that's what I'm using. And this is what I wanted to see because I was very curious. Did they change it? Did they change it? And a little. So that's the answer. Kind of. I think that's typically always the answer, right? So there are many men and boys who were not happy with the gender-locked conversation, as well as a lot of, I guess, female-identifying folk who wanted to be able to play a different gender because they liked the responses and they wanted to have a different aspect or conversation piece in this. So whatever the reason, exploring it, there was a lot of different people like, I like it this way, and I wanted to try, but they won't let me. But some games have allowed for people to choose specific genders. They do, but it's still binary, y'all. So I had not seen any non-binary options in Pixelberry. Again, the other apps may, I don't know. So if there's a better app, I'm sure people are going to let us know. Many still feel it's not enough options. And I absolutely agree. And then there's also stories that let you play from either perspective. So I've hit on 2 of the stories where you can play either the main male or main female character. Again, very binary. And then you go from that route and see what happens in that route. There's one that's a princess and a magician, I believe. The man is a magician, by the way. And it goes different routes of that adventure. But they are very specific, and you can't rename them, I don't think. A lot of them you can. I don't think in this option you can. There's also options where you can actually choose who you are, your name, and then you can actually choose your love interest. The only other problem is I have seen someone say that as an asexual player, they could not have an option that even if they wanted to flirt, which we know asexuality is very broad in the spectrum, and it could mean I love to flirt, but I don't want this sexual, physical touch like that, which is understandable. And that's kind of that conversation is like they wanted to be able to flirt, but flirt translated into touching, which was like, that's not what we wanted as an asexual character. And there was no option not to do this, which is really that's really discouraging. I will say they did put in an Asian character as previously they did not. And yes, every time I played it, this has been an Asian character. So I guess I am vicariously living through them. I didn't think about that because they're never my name. I don't ever want to say my name. That just feels too odd. And yeah, again, like I said, there's a lot of conversations about whether or not it has progressed enough. The reason it caught my attention is because going through the female gaze or the feminist lens, there's a lot more depth than I expected for like a gameplay, I guess, especially mobile gameplay. Not that the standard should be low, but I still didn't know. But the fact that they actually did a fairly good job in talking about consent. So I did venture into one that's a dom sub, and I will tell y'all, not my cup of tea all the time. There are things that I'm like, I'm not sure how I feel about this. This makes me a little uncomfortable. But the one thing I have to say that throughout that each time there is role play, and I'm putting this in quotes because, I'm not really sure what I'm talking about, they make sure consent is at the top of the conversation, as if these two characters are working it out to make sure they realize that they are able to consent with each other. So I found that really nice. I was like, oh, look at that. Because we know that this culture in real life are very, very focused on consent. And I think it pays respect. Again, I don't think is on point as in like, I don't know how realistic these things are. I have no real perspective. So I'm taking that as a grain of salt. But to see that they are talking about consent and any of the steamy, spicy content, they are talking about consent. And I really appreciated that. I was like, okay. Because, when you and I have talked about this as a kid when I was reading through romance, the sexy things were like being taken and doing this and being, saying no, but meaning yes. That's not happening. And I was like, okay, look at this. They are really changing that kind of conversation up. Maybe I've not read deeply into all of it. I don't know. But the few pieces that I've seen, they have done a really good job of that. And all of these characters, they have started to formulate the characters well, I guess, in that some of these, I was surprised by the type of jobs that they were getting or the way they would speak or how they would stand up for themselves. Of course, you choose these things. But it was really interesting to see. I was like, yeah, I feel like these are women writing this, yeah, or at least non-binary folk who understand. And as I was researching it, because you can look to see who wrote or created the different books, and they give an interview about what they're doing and how excited they are about their work. And one of them was Megan. I'm sorry, I don't know your last name. I actually looked her up on LinkedIn. But she did an amazing job with one of the ones that I've read and talking about how she wants to expand it and how she loves these characters. And I'm like, wow, this is really interesting gaming.
I love this. Yeah, I totally agree. We were talking about this before. If consent is involved in the conversation like that, I assume it was probably a woman or non-binary person who wrote it. I've said before, I've seen this happen in fan fiction, but it's interesting too because I haven't ventured into this world, but I've played games like this on consoles. And I can't say whether or not, like one that comes to mind, I love the game Oxenfree. If you are interested in this and want to explore more, Oxenfree is a great one. And the main character is a woman. And then I know Mass Effect is a big one, but Mass Effect also had discussions like this of like, I have to be femme shep or male shepherd. I will say I did femme shep and I went down every romance possible, but that was more, I was just curious what would happen.
Yeah. I mean, that's part of it. Like, I feel like you're able to experiment at a safe distance.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just kind of fun. I'm like, oh, what if I go talk to this guy? What's going to happen? But yeah, I'm very interested to try it out. And actually, as you were telling me about this, I remembered a listener wrote us a while back, and we wanted to read part of Amanda's email. Amanda wrote, just have to suggest the text-based choose-your-own-adventure game, The Wayhaven Chronicles, to Anney and Samantha. It's a planned 7-book series and is so good. Be gay, bi, straight, or ace while having to deal with 4 ridiculously good-looking vampires of your chosen preference in a small town while solving a murder.
What?
Did I mention your choices matter and vary the story through each playthrough? And no going backsies. Oof.
Oh, no.
Yeah, there's 2 books out so far with the 3rd in production, and it has brought me so much joy that I couldn't help but think of it as SMNTY started venturing into fiction and horror. And yes, despite the rom-com description, there are horror elements and even mythological twists and turns.
Ooh, well, I am game at this point. As I'm exploring this whole new world, I'm like, wait, what? Vampires? Yes. We know I love vampires.
Yes. So... Samantha and I think we're gonna give it a go.
Yes.
I know this is like late coming, but I did actually download it right after this email. So I wanted to do it, and this has just been another kickstart.
Yes.
And then we were planning on doing maybe a book club or an episode on it, and discuss, because I think it's gonna be really interesting to compare our experiences.
Choices,
yes. But Amanda, if you're listening, I hope you still are, because I know this was a little while back. It was a Halloween. Amanda was suggesting it for like a Halloween type thing.
Oh, we know when we come into fall, it's always Halloween season, and we're coming.
And we love horror all year round, so it's all good.
Exactly.
But yeah, we would love if you could reach back out and let us know where you are, your thoughts, your experiences.
We want to know your experience and how they compare to ours as well.
Yes, and any listeners. We would love to hear from you. I think this could be really fun.
Yes.
Yes, so look forward to that one. And in the meantime, if you do want to contact us about any of this stuff, have any suggestions, that'd be great. You can email us at stuffmediamomstuff@iheartmedia.com. You can find us on Twitter at momstuffpodcast or on Instagram at Stuff I Never Told You. Thanks as always to our super producer, Christina.
Which I feel like you should be a part of this, Christina.
I think so. And thanks to you for listening. Stuff I Never Told You is a production of iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, you can listen to the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.